Unemployed. All right. This is going to be a little interactive. First off, how many managers are in the room? How many people have employees that directly work for them? Raise all right. How many Scrum Masters in the room? Okay, I just like to get a good feel for who I'm going to alienate in this talk. As Seth said, my name is Pete. I'm here to teach you how to fail at DevOps with just one weird trick, because it's so easy, right? Just one weird trick. And I've been working on this talk for quite a while, and a lot of titles have come up. I think Andrew came up with this idea originally, the how to fail the one weird trick. The actual title is more like this, which is Pete Cheslock was asked to run the DevOps team, but you won't believe what happened next. So now that I've properly given you the link bait, I saw a lot of talks that talked about how to do DevOps or buy DevOps or outsource DevOps or whatever. But nothing really said kind of concrete things. And so I really wanted to talk about some concrete failures, but also at the same time, because I hate to just kind of dump all over something like DevOps without being like, this is what you should do. So hopefully you'll get a little bit of the bad and a little bit of the good, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. So, all right, so you've probably seen these ads on the internet. If my talk title makes no sense to you, it means you have an ad block software. And they're everywhere, right? They make some pretty bold claims about some simple tricks can solve some complex problems. Similar maybe to how a simple trick could solve your Agile, Scrum, DevOps, that type of thing. So we want to talk about what are some of the things that cause DevOps to fail, how we react to these failures, how we improve things. So I'm going to show you the one weird trick. I'm going to share with you some of my real life experiences where I've screwed up, because I've made a lot of the decisions that cause lots of failure. And many of these stories I was directly involved with. So failure is a good thing. I think a lot of times people, they don't want to fail. They feel like if they fail, they're going to lose their job or something crazy. You have to really accept failure, because it's really the only way to learn. I mean, I knew nothing until I was a failure. So, fool you. Oh, sweet, the gifts are working. There's actually not one weird trick. There's a lot of weird tricks. But it turns out I only have 30 minutes, so you just get the one weird trick. If you want to talk about more weird tricks, we got open spaces later, so we should do that. But whether you're trying to transform your organization by creating a brand new silo, or trying to use politics in order to improve your corporate and company communications, or maybe you're going to build a tool to solve some people problems, I've probably already done that, and it's not done so well. So anyway, just to talk a little bit about myself, I'm Pete Cheslock, currently unemployed. How many people here are hiring? I didn't do that one yet. All right, cool. So how many people here are looking for work? All right, so you should all meet up. I previously worked at Dyn. Dyn's a sponsor today, so thank you to them. You might remember the old Dyn DNS Updater client. They're a global internet performance company now. Before that, I was working at Sonian. Who here has heard of or used Sensu? Any Sensu users? All right, so Sensu actually came out of my team at Sonian. And it was about 3 years ago now, which is amazing. So, and before that, a lot of consulting. So I really had this opportunity to look deep inside a lot of companies, small, medium-sized businesses that, and kind of see their struggles. And the interesting thing is it's all the exact same. But that's my background. There's really only one thing you need to know about me. So if you see me and you want to chat, and you want to break that awkward silence, there's just one thing you got to know. So anyone get this one yet? Cheslock loves sushi. So if you want to talk about something, well, and hugs, let's be honest. I love hugs as well. So anyway, so I lied. Actually, again, there's 3 things that you have to know about me. I love animated GIFs. I loved last talk that there was animated GIFs. So even if this talk sucks, there's going to be some animated GIFs. So when people talk about failure, they often quote Thomas Edison. It's this exact quote he said. And there's a lot of different variations to it, but this is the exact one I went and tracked down. It said, I have not failed 700 times. I have not failed once. I have succeeded in proving that those 700 ways will not work. When I've eliminated the ways that will not work, I will find the way that will work. What a pompous asshole. So we are in the early stages of DevOps. In the grand scheme of things, we're talking about something that's only been around for about 5 years or so. That's very early. I mean, that's like preschool. So we're not even in kindergarten yet, or maybe just starting. So many people, like you all here today, myself, we're trying to help companies understand and improve their organizations. I think that's the constant ring that you're hearing from all these talks today is all about improvement. We don't have all the answers. I can't take my successes and apply them to your org because it's not going to work unless you copy everything about my org, and that's impossible to do. But you can learn from failures and hopefully then design your own ways to improve them. So, but again, there's no single answers here. There's no silver bullet to DevOps, no matter what marketing is telling you. So again, we're still trying to learn as we go. Sharing stories at our events like this is how we can get better. And hopefully we can learn some of those 700 ways to fail so that we can find the one way that does work. But we need to remember one really important thing. It's that we don't want to fail the same way every time. Failure is good, but not the same way every time. We want to fail in new and novel ways every single time. Learn those failures and let's share those failures. I think the movement of sharing these postmortems when people fail is wonderful, because the only way we're going to get better is by sharing our failures. So if you're playing the DevOps drinking game at home, I weep for you, because I'm going to say DevOps a few times. But this is going to be my one DevOps slide, which is essentially I blame DevOps on Agile. So a friend of mine I was chatting, and he said that basically why we need DevOps today is because of Agile like 10 plus years ago. So why is this all important? And basically it was you used to have one really poorly functioning organization. The whole organization was completely screwed. So a slow to react ops team was really not holding back a slow to deploy dev team. But then you had this Agile thing come along, and it increases the speed of delivery. So it's like this conveyor belt of sushi that's just moving into the ops team, and now they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Agile and Scrum, does anyone use Agile and Scrum for their operations teams? Show of hands, anyone? Does it work well? Is it weird? Did you have to cut out a bunch of stuff? Those are all probably the answers. Operations is way too interruptive in nature to be kind of tightly controlled. And honestly, I don't like Agile or Scrum, so I think it's a bad choice for development anyway. So we have to change. What we're doing is not working, and all of us have to change. I don't care if you're an ops or a dev or finance or business or whatever. We have to change how we do business. Operations is business. You're delivering business value. Development, business. Finance, marketing, it's all business. You all have one goal, and that's for your company to make money, or whatever your company does, which is probably make money. So seriously, this is my last DevOps slide, I swear. Who's seen the Gartner hype cycle? So we are in different places in the hype cycle with DevOps, depending on your perspective. At least that's my assertion. So for a lot of you who are getting involved, you're at the early stage. You're kind of coming up that peak of inflated expectations, where DevOps will solve everything. You probably have your CIO coming up to you and be like, we got to do that DevOps thing. Go hire me some DevOps. Obviously, for other people, we're kind of down and disillusioned by DevOps, which honestly, I hope we move towards a place where we can kill DevOps, where DevOps can die, because this is just going to be standard practice. What do you mean you don't have teams that, you have teams that don't communicate? That's insanity, right? So it's going to take time, though, because people don't like change. So weird trick number one, because I had a lot of weird tricks. This is the one true DevOps, Andrew here. So Andrew in the Technicolor DevOps. So, but how can you fail really well? And that is, maybe your chief DevOps officer comes to you and says, got to build out this DevOps team. We're going to put them right where that wall of confusion is. So everything dev's just thrown over the wall, they'll just toss to this new team. It will totally work. Done and done, right? We're good. Obviously, it sounds insane when you say it like that, but this is what's happening everywhere. So I will admit, I was, who here has DevOps in their job title? Did I ask that one yet? Not many. All right, that's actually probably a good thing. So I've had it twice. One time I actually picked it myself, and I feel bad for it still. But I used to be the director of DevOps, and then developer operation, whatever it was. But about 2010 or so at the time, we had always called our ops team DevOps. One of the senior members actually told me one time, he said, well, I write code, I manage systems, I do both dev and I ops, therefore DevOps. So that totally made sense to me at the time. And that's what I often hear nowadays when people talk about DevOps teams. They want someone who can code and someone who can manage systems. So when I was in consulting, I'd really been out of frontline operations for a while. And there was maybe 4 or 5 years or so. And then I kind of came back into it through some startups. I was really shocked how deep my team was at programming. I was always kind of your, classically trained sysadmin, which means I didn't know what I was doing and I was thrown into some role because I knew computers. Like at an ISP, they're like, oh, you know computers. That box there runs our entire company. Figure it out. So, but more and more people are really, I'm finding more and more operators who are developers, and the line is getting blurred. and that's a good thing. But the silos do still exist. So many years later, though, even though I like the whole Dev and Ops thing, I stand by Adam Jacobs' version of DevOps. This is from a talk he did in 2011. DevOps is a cultural and professional movement, period. That's it, done. There's no technology, you can't patent it. He goes on, and it's a great talk. I highly recommend it. So people want to talk about how you need to have some tools to do DevOps, right? You need Jenkins. Jenkins, you're totally DevOpsing. Vagrant. If you're not using Vagrant, you are not DevOpsing, right? You do need tools, but you can't apply tools to a broken organization. You don't have a technology problem. You have a people problem. Not to say tools aren't important again. You have to have them, but you have to solve the first thing first. You got to build a solid foundation. Otherwise, you're building like a third floor while the first floor is still on fire. So every tool in the world will not help you if you don't understand if your engineering team pushed untested code to production without actually talking to anyone, or maybe your operations team has said no so many times that no one even comes to them asking for help. These are all like pervasive, destructive behaviors in an organization. So again, you can't solve this stuff with technology alone. You do need some change in the technology. You can't use the same broken tools and try to change your org. They have to kind of move together. This is just a great one from my friend Lisa. If you're trying to solve social communication problem with process technology, you got bigger problems. I actually say you have two problems now, because now you have broken tools and a broken org. So what does your organization look like? Does it look, the Microsoft one cracks me up. They're all just holding guns against each other. And Oracle, if you can't read it, that giant blob, that's the legal team at Oracle. What does your organization look like? How is it structured? How do teams communicate? You can't just insert a new team into a dysfunctional org and just expect magic to happen. I've done that. I've been that. It just doesn't work. They're going to act in the exact same way as the rest of your organization. Patty McCord, she was previously the chief talent officer for Netflix for over a decade. She has an amazing talk. All the links as well are in this slide deck, so you can pick it up online later. But she said this, which is, the real company values, as opposed to the nice sounding values, are shown by who gets rewarded, who gets promoted, and who gets let go. It's really as simple as that. So compare those things about your organization to what's on your mission statement, what's being said versus what's actually happening. If you asked everyone at the company, what would they say? So we talk about dev, we talk about ops, and you hear more people are like, oh, don't forget me in QA over here. And the release engineers, they're like, hey, what about us? Like, we want to be part of this. But what I'm going to ask is, what about the product team? What about sales? Any salespeople here? What about finance? Do you know how your company makes money? Have you ever been on a demo with your customers to see how they use the product? Because I can guarantee you, however you programmed it is not how they're using it. I used to be a sales engineer. I would get the most insane requests for different things that only when we brought our engineers onto those calls did they finally get it. They finally understood what the customers really wanted. You can't just have them in their own little world just shipping code. It just doesn't work. There's a great blog post that was written. It was by someone here today. And this is the best quote I've ever seen on how to describe DevOps, really. DevOps means giving a shit about your job enough to not pass the buck. DevOps means giving a shit about your job enough to want to learn all the parts and not just your little world. So oftentimes people are like, oh, well, I dev and I op. I'm learning all the parts. How do your customers pay you? How do your customers use, how do you market to customers? What is your market? How many people here know the target market of their product? Not many, right? It's like half the audience or so. It should be everyone. You should know exactly who your target market is. That's what it's all about right there. It's caring enough that you want to learn more. So how many people's orgs look like this? This is pretty much every org I've been in my life. You got your C-level, you got your VP Ops, VP Eng, and some middle managers. We learned that we don't like those people. I've been one. It's not fun. And your devs and your ops. So how does your communication flow? Does it go all the way up and back down again? What happens? It's like the worst game of telephone ever, right? So what's happening to your data going through? A good friend of mine asked me one time, is your information being weaponized as it moves over? Is it being used against you? That never happens, right? So it's not a DevOps talk without a Deming quote, right? I got 3 Deming quotes. The worker is not the problem's at the top, management. I'm a manager. I also like hands-on stuff. I fall anywhere in between, but The problem is absolutely management. It is never below, because it all starts from the top. So again, who's other managers? Yeah, it's your fault. Me too, it's cool. Let's hug it out after. So this is a quote from one of his books from the 80s. So it is management's job to direct the efforts of all components towards the aim of the system. The first step is clarification. Everyone in the org must understand the aim of the system and how to direct their efforts towards it. Everyone must understand the damage and loss to the whole organization from a team that seeks to become a selfish, independent profit center. Man, whew. You get the DevOps you deserve. You gotta want it. You gotta want to change. So how many people's organizations look like this? This is the Egyptian parliament, by the way. Who's ever worked at a highly political org? Raise hands. Yeah, wow, that's a lot of people. So remember that slide a few back again? Communication goes up and down. So I'll make the assertion that if your org looks like that, you'll never be able to succeed at DevOps, like the concept of DevOps. Because if people are too busy weaponizing data, using it, as Deming said here, to become selfish, independent profit centers, like, I'm not going to say you're a lost cause, but I'm going to say it, sorry. So how do you build an org, right? Pete, you're saying all these great things or whatever that other people have said before you. You're just repeating them now, but how do you do it? So this is the Roman army, one of the most successful and scalable organizations of all time. Their units were 8 men who shared a tent, millstone, mule, and cooking pot. So why 8 people? That's how many fit in a tent. So they dominated 500 years of history, and you can't even ship your app on time? Like, seriously. So there's a link, it's at the bottom again, they're all saved later, a fantastic article by Chris Fry, who's SVP of Twitter Engineering. It's a very long article. I'm going to summarize a few key points that I really like about it. So Chris talks about a few things about scalable teams in his post, and when I think of scalability and growing really quickly, Twitter's a company that comes up. So you want to focus on one thing, which is to build strong teams first, right? I didn't say build a web team, or back-end team, or a DevOps team. You build strong teams. And strong doesn't mean senior, by the way, either. These antiquated business structures from 30, 40, 50 years ago, they just don't work. There's little incentive for teams to want to work together. And often there's no incentive at all. There's more incentive to work against them because, you know, if you fail on deploying that, you got a $5 million budget, I've got a $1 million budget, I can build my ivory tower so high, it'll be amazing. So when you're growing a company, you're going to get to like 40 people, things are just going to break down. It's going to be terrible. So you need to stop hiring silos. You need to stop hiring, who's read the Phoenix Project? Stop hiring Brent. Like, that dude should be unemployed, or he should start working with other people. You need people who are willing to learn. You don't need like a web person. You need people who want to learn. Knowledge can be fast to acquire by people that are willing. And learning needs to be a core initiative in your organization. You should incentivize that. So again, when you're starting out, people do a little bit of everything. So you staff projects for really short periods of time. Now you're doing highly interrupted work. It's going to cost you in the long run. So you really have to like keep an eye out for that if you're a growing company, because you're going to have some issues later. So now if you're the person leading the team that's doing all the assigning of the work, I've been this many times, now you're the newest bottleneck. You have all these people that are cranking on stuff, and now you're the bottleneck. You're moving so fast you can't stop and fix things. You're incurring lots of technical debt. Just like financial debt, technical debt is evil. It will catch up with you. You'll reach a point where you just can't innovate anymore because you need to pay down on that interest. So your only focus should be able to create small teams of dedicated people. There is no replacement for having a small group of people that work well together. I think in the places that I've worked that I've had those really strong teams, like, I wish I could find that again. I really do. It's incredibly hard to find. So if you're the manager, again, managers, I know who you are now, you rose your hands. That's your only goal. So why don't people do this? It seems so easy. Just, create these teams and whatnot. Because they don't trust you. Managers, by default, are like, well, I can't trust them to go and do this thing. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they don't want to fail. Maybe it's because they don't want their data's being weaponized, right? They're going to lose their budget. Do you think the Roman army asked that squad of 8 people to track their time on a mission at 15-minute intervals or something? Did the Roman army have the squad sit down to plan every step of the invasion piece by piece and estimate the time for each piece? Let's say they did do that, which is insanity. But what happens when the soldiers try to go over that wall and it turns out there's a moat in front? We're blocked. Going to the squad master, got to find out what to do. Don't know what to do. So now we're blocked in that mode over there. Better get the bridge builders over there because that's their department. Meanwhile, the squad leader's freaking out because the estimates are blown. The burn down chart is ruined, people. Ruined. So you're hiring these skilled adults into this high-functioning team, and you're taking someone who's never done software engineering and having them run the team. But it's cool. They took a class at the strip mall next to that sushi place. So it's all good, right? So you're removing the most important part, the important talent that you want your team to have, which is critical thought. How does your team react to uncertainty? How do they react to disorder? Do they solve it themselves, or do they just throw up their hands, saying they're blocked? So I make the assertion top-down management doesn't work. I think this is something that everyone's been saying for a while, and I see it time and time again. Companies grow by staying flexible, fast, nimble, small teams. They focus, but then they start focusing on people versus teams. Then they bring in people and process that mimics the same slow, lumbering organization that they originally tried to disrupt. So then what happens? They become the same large bureaucratic organizations they tried to replace, and then another company's going to come along that can move faster, and then the cycle just continues. This is what we're seeing every single day for the last how many years. So what's the biggest problem in this org structure is that what happens when your list of priorities in ops is different than engineering? What's getting done? I don't know. But you don't have people working on the same thing. So what do you end up with? Anyone want to take a guess? You're going to end up with a bridge. Who knows where the other side is? 2 miles down the river, but they're not going to connect, right? So you have two teams, their own list of priorities. It's just not going to work. Who here has heard of Conway's Law? A few people. It's great. I mean, organizations which design systems are constrained to produce designs, which are copies of the communication structures. So a good scenario, like what's the real life example of this one is, let's say you had a bunch of teams that really didn't communicate really well. Maybe they all have the same problem though, which is we need configuration management. So one of them's like, we're gonna use Puppet, awesome. Another one's like, we're gonna use Chef, we're not using anything else. Another one's like, how about CF Engine? And then one's just gonna build their own, right? These things happen. These are real things that occur. So what do? You're like, great, I don't want structure, I want to keep fast and nimble. So you build a small team. Maybe some engineer-focused people, release engineering, network, system ops, automation-focused people. Just put them all together, right? Then you do it again. Then you do it again. What's missing here? Anyone knowing what's missing on this org chart, right? Those pesky managers, right? They're outside where they should be. VPC level, they're outside of this, right? They're helping to support the teams, build the team, grow the teams, create the environment. That's what they're trying to do. What happens if you just remove all the titles? I think titles are dangerous, right? I'm an eng, you're an ops. No. You're on a team with one purpose and one goal, to do something, whatever that something is. So get them all together. You know what happens? The rising tide, right? Lifts all boats. I love this image here. Not my problem, right? Holes on the other side of the boat. So maybe some of the ops people learn some programming. Maybe some engineers learn about config management. Maybe the network people use automation on network devices. Maybe your entire team turns into one of those amazing high-functioning engineering teams that you were trying to hire. But guess what? They're just not out there to hire. Now imagine you can build this yourself. So think about your hardest problem you have to solve. And you could take this team of people that already trust each other to go and build it for you. So they already know how people like to work, and they work together. You keep them together for like 6 months to a year or so. They're all going to trust each other. And hopefully you're going to trust the team to deliver. Now I'm not saying you just give them a task and you don't check in for a year. That's insane. But you give them trust. It ensures you have that healthy and honest communication that you really want. So let's talk about priorities. Again, when you have these small teams, you need to keep people focused on their task, their teams focused on the task, because then it's like all of these squads of the Roman army, right? They're all marching to the same mission, the same priority. Maybe how they solve it's going to be a little bit different. So again, if you're a manager, what is your role, right? Trust. It's getting the hell out of the way. You have to learn to let go, because if you're always the person that's getting involved in these teams and not letting them, you're basically taking adults and you're bringing them down and treating them like children. Like, guess what? You're going to end up with a bunch of children that you have to always constantly manage. Now, if you treat them the other way around, you're going to have these brilliant people that can work really hard for you. But you got to make them accountable. Make sure they have the resources to be successful. So you share the vision, but let them execute. Let them win. So I actually had to get a picture of the Steelers. I don't even know. I don't like football, but I feel like I had to for here. If it was like New England, people would be like, burn him. But so I don't like really football, but I use it as an analogy. So I say to myself as a manager, my job as a leader really to hire the team, paint the boundaries, right? Got to know when they're out of bounds and kind of bring them back in. Point them towards the goal line, but I don't have to call every play. I don't really care what position you play, but there's the goal. Get there. So it seems obvious. You're like, well, of course, that seems obvious, right? You still got to have a coach, but it doesn't mean he has to call every single play. So when it's technology, it should be the same thing. It should be an obvious goal because you're solving these technology problems. So, so if you're a VP or C-level, you want to know what the quickest way to absolutely demoralize your team? Say something like this. Now, no, so hold on, sorry. I'm not saying that OpenStack is terrible to deploy, manage, or scale. I'm just using it as an example that you can't just come in and be like, do this thing, right? And you've heard this in a lot of the other talks. Yearn for the ocean, right? Maybe instead, we need a better way to manage systems. Who cares if you use OpenStack? We just need a different way to do this, right? What's great is that if you're really building these teams right, they're going to come to you and they're going to let you know this stuff. They're going to tell you what they think the priorities are, and so you can work together on that. But it only works if you have a team like this. You have to cultivate trust and learning. Always trust and learning. You need to empower them to make decisions on the field, right? They get to that moat. They should not throw their hands up saying they're blocked. They should start building, like cutting down trees and building a bridge. So you have to let them fail. Every time you fail, you learn. So a good example is I've seen marketing teams spend hundreds of thousands on lead generation programs that develop pretty much no leads or limited leads and zero sales, right? Zero return on investment. So how is that not the same or worse than the site going down? You're losing money either way. So why are we putting the tech side of the business on the pedestal? So something didn't work. Awesome. So that marketing campaign didn't work. What went wrong? Are they doing postmortems? Like, why can't we all do this together? Because we're all in the same mission, right? We want the company to succeed. So, all right, I have 4 minutes, so you get bonus trick because we got time. So, and no talk's complete until you listen to me rant on marketing, recruiting, or job titles, which I'm going to do all of those here. So I'm not going to say who this company is because they may or may not have a bunch of people in this room right now, but DevOps automation service, I don't know what the hell this is. This is there's a lot of companies that are doing this stuff. And honestly, like, I don't care anymore. I really don't. If you want to sell your DevOps tool, that's fine. I think the market's smarter than you, though, and I think you're going to be on the wrong side of things. But there's nothing in this list that's going to solve your problems. Again, if you just like deploy Chef into a broken org, now you got 2 problems. Like, you gotta understand what you're doing first. Just don't apply, GitHub, that makes no sense. Anyway, sorry. They're going to give you more problems than you solve, right? Everyone wants to sell you DevOps. You can't buy it. So DevOps engineers, DevOps architects, directors of DevOps, VP of DevOps, when will it end? I don't know. So, yeah, Stanford campus, sorry. Look, okay, I get it, right? The tech world moved forward much faster than our ability to come up with job titles that don't suck. Who was a systems engineer 4? Anyone have that title? Or 3 or 2? It doesn't really matter. I know you, John, I know you did. Or senior DevOps, listen, they both suck. They're both terrible job titles. So these tools, EC2, Puppet, Chef, they all made programming much more accessible to a group of people that normally would kind of push themselves away from programming. So people that didn't want anything to do with it now are doing it as part of their day job. Because, if you manage more than 10 systems on EC2 without config management, that sucks. That sucks worse than these job titles. So I get it, right? If you want to use DevOps as a qualifier for what's essentially an advanced generalist, fine. Because as bad as it is, DevOps has come to mean things like continuous integration, deployment, cloud, config management, programming, et cetera. Sometimes it means doing both dev and ops work. And trust me, as someone who has met with a lot of companies trying to find a job, stay the hell away from those roles. Because it pretty much means we want you to do 2 jobs and work 80-hour weeks, and you're just going to burn out. So honestly, you want to hire DevOps, you want to be a DevOps, whatever. I'm like, I ain't mad. I don't care. Just do what you got to do, right? Sometimes you can't even control it. I was talking with someone, they have a DevOps title now, and it's like, well, like, not my choice. I'm like, yeah, it happens. So sometimes it is your choice, like me, and then you change it quickly later when you realize you're an idiot. It's your company though, right? So it's your title. Own it, right? If you want to be a DevOps, like own it though. Because again, like if we have digital profits, like you could be a DevOps. It's probably fine. So let's sum this up. I think the most important thing here that I hope you're kind of picking up is that a failure of DevOps is everyone's failure. Everyone's, not ops, not dev, no, everyone, CEO and down. If you want to undertake a DevOps transformation and you don't have the buy-in of absolutely everyone involved, which should be everyone in the organization, all the way to your CEO, it's just going to fail. As I meet companies that are looking for someone to help them kind of grow and scale their organizations, it's always interesting to hear them kind of talk about what they're looking for. And the one thing I always tell them is like, you're going to have to change. It's like, it's inevitable. If you keep doing the same things over and over, you're just doomed to fail. So we're going to sum this up with more Deming quotes because that's what we do. See if I can get this going. There we go. So I love this one. Technically, it's not actually what he said. There's a different version that says the same thing. It's not necessary to change. Survival is not mandatory. The actual one he said doesn't sound as cool, so we're going to use this one. But he also said there's no substitute for knowledge. There's no substitute for learning. So let's continue these discussions during open spaces after lunch. Let's talk about what you love about your organization, maybe what you don't like. What are some of the barriers that you think are holding you back? Because the reality is you're either going to want to improve your organization or you're going to lose to someone who is. So thank you.
On, Mike. Mike.